Right, we need to create a pocket bag. We're going to be adding a pocket into the seam. The method that I'm going to show you to construct it is where you effectively sew it all to like either the front of the garment, which will enable you to be able to put a concealed zip or zip into that seam as well as a pocket. The way that a lot of patterns show these is where the seams are displaced, but that means that you can't then put a zip in. And this is the way that we would do it in industry. So the first thing you need to do is create your pocket bag. But what do you put in your pocket? What are the contents of your pockets? Generally a phone. How big is your hand for the opening? Where is the pocket going to start? So if this was your waist, you wouldn't have your pocket in the seam if it was in the side seam right from the top. This method, you can still have it and create a pocket in a seam on a horizontal seam. So there's nothing to stop you that. It's the same way of doing it, but just different considerations. So we're going to focus on the side seam pocket. So you don't start it normally right at the waist. You sort of need to stand up and feel on your hips, you know, whereabouts on your waist would your pocket be. That's your waist down your side seam. Where does your hand naturally lie? You don't want to be too deep when you put your hand in the pocket. You don't want it to be too high. It's quite important. And then the contents of your pocket. When you've got a pocket bag, if it's not anchored, if you've got a waist seam, it's nice to anchor the pocket bag into that waist seam. So the contents of your pocket, if they're too heavy, it doesn't pull it down. If you haven't got a waist seam, then your pocket bag can only just be into the side seam. It just gets a bit baggy. So two different ways of doing it. So if I consider this to be my waist and this my side seam, my hand coming in, whereabouts do I want it to be? The opening needs to be enough for you to put your hand in sidewards. You don't want it too tight, you have to squeeze your hand in. So these are the considerations when you're doing it. So these would be notches on the side seam. And then you'll put your seam allowance, we'll draft it with the seam allowances on. If you've got a skirt and it's shaped, you would use your block so that it's curved, and you use the side seam of that garment, and that side seam is a direct trace of the garment. In this sample, we're just going to do it square. So just remember that the side seam as garment. So you would trace around your pattern piece and then you would work out where you're going to put it. So if you're doing just the one where it's just the pocket bags, it's 2 centimetres above, 2 centimetres below your pocket opening. So that's the opening. If you're going to anchor it on the top, then you come up right to the top. So we're actually going to cut one pattern piece where it's just into the side seam and the other one where it goes up into the waist, but we're just going to draft the first one and then trace the other one off. You want your pocket to hold something. Think about that. What do you want your pocket to hold? It comes in, think about that right angle, that sewing line, that sewing seam. So it can come at a right angle here, and then it almost looks like a cartoon character nose. You think of the Mr. Men, and they've just got a nice big nose. And that's the sort of shape that you want for your pocket pattern piece. And then if you're taking it into the side seam, you can see that that instance would just come around like that. You will still need your grain line on your pattern piece. You will then have a pocket pattern piece there, and you can just trace off. You will need 2 pattern pieces, the main one, which is the one at the back of the garment that you see, and then the one which is effectively like a facing, which can be in a contrast fabric. And if you've got a pocket in both side seams, then obviously you need 4. So it's like a pair or 2 pairs, depending how many pockets you're going to do. So that's making part 1, making the pattern piece.